Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about three vitamins of the B complex. B6 is the first one, then we are going to talk about pantothenic acid and biotin. So to start here with vitamin B6. So the name B6 is because there are six different types of vitamin B6 as you can see here. So exists as six vitamins we call. It's the pyridoxamine or the amine form, pyridoxal, the aldehyde form, and pyridoxine or pyridoxal, the alcohol form. And all of each have a 5-phosphate derivative. In other words, each of these three has an analog that contains a phosphate group. And that's what we call phosphate derivative. Again, going back here now. So these are the six vitamin isoforms. So we have the pyridoxine here on the left, pyridoxal. You see what differs here is that here you have a methyl group and a hydroxyl group here. Here you have a aldehyde, and here you have an amine associated to the molecule. So that's why it's called pyridoxamine here, and pyridoxal here, and pyridoxine in the first one. And each of them has a phosphate attached to it. See here in the circle, in this depicted here in this dashed circle. So you can see there is a phosphate group attached to each of them. So it becomes pyridoxine phosphate, pyridoxal phosphate, and pyridoxamine phosphate. So all of them, six isoforms. That's what we call vitamin B6. So these vitamins are interchangeable. In other words, they can be converted into one another. And they have similar biological activity and function as coenzymes in multiple reactions, actually more than 100 different reactions. Vitamin B6 plays a role. And most of them are involved in amino acid metabolism. So without vitamin B6, non-essential amino acids become essential and need to be obtained from the diet. And the reason for this is because the non-essential amino acids are the ones that you can actually make in your body. Now, how do you make it? Is because you have part of the process or the mechanism, which is a lengthy biochemical pathway. You have steps that you start with a substrate, you end with a product, which is the amino acid. Now, this process, this lengthy process that I mentioned, requires some enzymes. So vitamin B6 plays an important role in this process, and that's why you can actually make some amino acids and not have to depend on getting them from the diet, and therefore they are called non-essential. But if you don't have vitamin B6, if you're deficient, it makes it difficult for you to actually synthesize these amino acids. For that reason, they become necessary that you acquire them from the diet. So important that vitamin B6 plays an important role in these reactions. So this is because in the absence or deficiency of vitamin B6, our body cannot make non-essential amino acids. Thus, vitamin B6 is also sometimes referred to as the protein vitamin. It's again, you cannot make protein if you don't have all the amino acids in the system. So if you don't have vitamin B6, you cannot make amino acids. Therefore, it also compromises the metabolism of protein. So that's why vitamin B6 is sometimes referred to as the protein vitamin. Primary functions required as a coenzyme or enzyme cofactor, better saying. It's a cofactor to an enzyme for carbohydrate and amino acid metabolism. Acts as a coenzyme the first step in the synthesis of heme, in other words, to make the protein that is crucial for the assembling of a red blood cell. So it assists in the synthesis of red blood cells. What are the dietary sources of vitamin B6? So you have animal and plant-derived products or foods that you can get it. Again, remember that when I mentioned before, the liver is is one of those foods that probably has the highest nutritional value you can get because it contains pretty much every nutrient that you require. So just one slice of pan-fried liver is approximately 0.84 milligrams. Chicken, if you eat the chest or the breast, you get 0.7 milligrams in 85 grams. If you eat the dark meat of chicken, it's a little bit less, but it's still a good source of B6. And a steak, also 0.3 milligrams per 85 grams. Ground beef is also rich. Salmon. And then you have the plant derived or the non-animal foods, such as a banana has 0.5 milligrams. Half a cup of broccoli, 0.16. Zucchini, 0.06. Potato, baked potato, 0.93. And also Cheerios, but Cheerios because it's enriched. It's in the processing or in the making of Cheerios. The food industry actually adds many other things, but in one of them, sorry, is vitamin B6. So what are the symptoms of deficiency? Anemia, as I said, because it assists in the process of assembling a red blood cell, the production of the heme, the protein that really is the core of the red blood cell. Seborrheic dermatitis, which is a skin condition. Depression, because it also affects the function of the nervous system, because some of the neurotransmitters that we have in the brain, they come from metabolism of amino acids. So if you cannot properly make those amino acids, it may affect function of the brain. Confusion, obviously, it's also another side effect of that, and convulsions, all associated with central nervous system defects. Symptoms of toxicity, it can be if you take too much, it can cause nerve damage and can also cause skin lesions. So with this, basically is what vitamin B6 does. And again, just to reinforce, it participates in more than 100 different reactions. So it plays an important role in many different aspects of metabolism. And this is just some of them that we listed here. So the next vitamin is pantothenic acid. And the name derives from the Greek word panthos, that means everywhere. So it implies that that it is found widely distributed in plant and animal foods. Therefore, deficiency of this vitamin is unlikely to occur. It's metabolically active as the prosthetic group of coenzyme A. I think everybody has heard of coenzyme A or CoA, because there are many different metabolic steps where coenzyme A participates. So one of them, for instance, is if you look in the Krebs cycle, it's acetyl-CoA. It's the molecule that enters the Krebs cycle for generation of energy, for instance. So CoA is a very important, what we call prosthetic group that participates in a number of different reactions, as we are going to discuss next. And it's also the acyl carrier protein. The vitamin is easily destroyed by heating and freezing, and when it's exposed to acidic or alkaline solutions. So it's a very, I would say, labile molecule, can be easily destroyed. It's good that we have it in abundance in different foods, because even though it might be easily destroyed, you end up eating enough, or you end up getting enough of it because it's abundantly present in different foods. Most pantothenic acids in cells is used to resynthesize CoA, because coenzyme A has a lifespan inside of your cells. It's used, it's metabolized, it ends up being converted into something else. So the importance of pantothenic acid is that it recycles back. It brings back that CoA that has been degraded or has been lost in any of the metabolic pathways. So it's The latter, CoA, is found in fairly high concentrations in liver, adrenal glands, kidneys, brain, and heart. So all organs that usually have a high metabolic rate, they contain a large amount of coenzyme A. Liver is important, as I said, because it has an important metabolic role. It's constantly being active in your body. So it's a detoxifying organ, but it's also important for many different reactions, and including for generating energy and for metabolizing carbohydrate, glucose, and fat, and protein. So coenzyme A is a crucial component of all these metabolic pathways. The adrenal glands, because it produces hormones, it has multiple functions in regulating sodium, metabolism, potassium, electrolytes, blood pressure. So there is a whole bunch of different things that come out of your adrenal glands. Kidneys, again, another very active organ. Brain, doesn't stop ever. And your heart, that is always beating. So there is quite a bit of demand for coenzyme A in these highly active organs. So how does the molecule look like? So this is the pantothenic acid vitamin that we actually get from the food is this upper structure that is shown here. So we have on the left, we have half of the molecule that is called pantoic acid, as depicted here on the left. And it's attached to an amino acid, alanine. So it's beta-alanine plus pantoic acid. That's the combination of these two that makes the pantothenic acid. Now you look at this molecule, which is the vitamin that we absorb, when you eat foods, that's what you get from the food, and that's what is absorbed by the different organs and tissues. But now once it's inside of the cell, pantothenic acid is used to synthesize coenzyme A. Now look at the size or the difference between the free form of the vitamin versus what it is when it becomes coenzyme A. So you have here on the top the coenzyme A structure, the pantothenic acid structure, and then you have two phosphate groups, and you have also a nucleotide actually that is attached to the molecule. So that's what forms coenzyme A. So this is what it is important to form or to be present inside of the cells, because it's the coenzyme A that really plays an important role in different aspects of metabolism. But it's a lot bigger and much more complex than the pantothenic acid itself, or the free form of the vitamin that we get from the food. And once it forms coenzyme A, it's trapped inside of the cells, because this big structure doesn't cross the membrane, cell membrane. It has to be cleaved, it has to be destroyed in order to exit the cell. So it's largely trapped inside of every cell in your body in the form of coenzyme A as depicted here. So what are the primary functions? So as CoA, as part of CoA, it assists us with fat, carbohydrate, and protein metabolism. So I would say that pretty much every aspect of metabolism in your body depends to some extent on the presence of coenzyme A, and obviously a supply of pantothenic acid from the diet. So it's part of acyl carrier protein, or ACP, a component of the fatty acid synthase complex. So if you're going to make a new cell, if you're replicating cells, you need to make membrane, you need fatty acids, you need lipids. So the coenzyme A, CoA participates in this process, so it's also important for synthesis of fatty acids and lipids that make up the structure of a cell also. So what's the recommended intake? We don't have a recommended intake, we have an adequate intake. And for men is approximately 5 milligrams per day, and for women the same. So there is no distinction between men and women. So it's an equal amount suffices all the needs of both men and women. So where do we get it from? So as I said, it's widely spread in foods. I just listed some of the most common ones, the ones that we consume on a regular basis. And that provide all the needs of pantothenic acids for most people. So again, liver here, 5 to 6 milligrams per 85 grams. Chicken, 1 milligram. Egg, 2.9. Milk, 0.2. Mushrooms, avocado, broccoli, soybeans, lentils, wheat bran, baker's yeast, cashews, and peanuts. So it's just to give you some examples of foods that people eat on a regular basis. So again, it's widely spread. It's easily destroyed by different things such as heating, acidic or alkaline environments, or even light. But because you have in abundance in different foods, you end up getting pretty much everything you need. So risk of developing deficiency is low, but if that's the case in those populations where they are severely deprived of food, or they cannot get any food, or they have some complications that makes it difficult for them to digest food, so that they might develop deficiency. And here we have vomiting, fatigue, and weakness. I think it's easy to understand why you have fatigue and weakness when you cannot process carbohydrate, fat, and protein in your body. So all cells require this nutrients to be able to maintain normal function. So weakness and fatigue is a typical one because you can hardly process energy or produce energy in the cell. Restlessness and irritability. And these symptoms are rare, but likely to occur in conjunction with multiple nutrient deficiencies, as in malnutrition. As I said, normally people don't suffer from lack of pantothenic acid, but in situations where they have severe malnutrition or some other complications that impair their ability to absorb nutrients from the food they have, then they might develop deficiency. Toxicity, the opposite, rarely occurs, although intakes of 15 to 20 grams have been associated with mild intestine distress, including diarrhea. So it looks like if you take too much of it, or especially if you take a supplement, it's normally not from foods, because foods, the bioavailability changes, varies, and it's not so easy to get too much of it. But if you take as a supplement, then it might lead to some degree of toxicity, but it's also a mild effect, and it's usually associated with intestine distress, basically diarrhea, if you will. So in the third vitamin that we're going to discuss today is biotin. So the discovery of biotin is originated from research investigating the cause of a disease or a condition called egg white injury. It's a kind of weird term, but yeah, egg white injury. So it's like, well, how does egg white cause an injury? So let's understand this a little bit. So it's a condition characterized by hair loss, dermatitis, again, skin condition, it's a skin disease, and various neuromuscular problems in people that ate raw eggs. So there was a time when people used to eat a lot. There was in some specific places, in some populations, people had the habit or were eating too many raw eggs. So that's where they observed that this egg white injury was frequently reported. And we're going to discuss more exactly what it is, but just to give you first an idea of what the biotin molecule is. The biotin molecule has a head, as depicted here on the left, which is composed of what we call urido ring and the thiopine ring. So these are two rings that are upside down and connected to each other. And then we have a tail here that is called the valeric acid chain. So that's a tail. So the combination of this valeric acid chain associated with the urido ring or thiopine ring, and the thiopine ring forms the head and the tail, so the whole biotin molecule is assembled. So here we have the biotin, and in cells, and normally inside of the cells, and the way how it's actually assembled inside of the cells is with it's bound to lysine. So you have biotin and lysine bound together, and you form what's called biocytin or biotin, biotinyl lysine. So it's a compound, or it's a molecule that really has its biological activity inside of the cells. So what does it do? It works as a prosthetic group or cofactor that is tightly or even covalently bound to proteins. In other words, it's attached to specific proteins, so it has an important function associated with the protein. So that's why it's called a prosthetic group. It's a cofactor. It is tightly or even covalently bound to proteins. It functions as a mobile carboxyl carrier in 4 carboxylase reactions or enzymes. So carboxyl carrier means that it adds a carboxyl group to specific reactions. So there are 4 enzymes here. Pyruvate carboxylase, it's important for carbohydrate metabolism. Acetyl-CoA carboxylase, it's important for lipid synthesis. Propionyl-CoA carboxylase, which is it's important for propionic acids or molecules that have 4 carbons, and it adds this carboxyl group to specific molecules with 4 carbons. And beta-methyl crotonyl-CoA carboxylase that also participates in reactions, especially in protein metabolism. So going back to the story of white or egg white injury. So raw eggs contain a protein named avidin that irreversibly binds biotin with high affinity and prevents its absorption. So the reason why raw eggs were problematic or were associated with this condition that was described as egg white injury was because this protein called avidin binds to the biotin molecule. So when you eat a food that contains biotin, and if you also have avidin present, avidin binds to biotin and doesn't allow it to be absorbed by your body. So in other words, you develop biotin deficiency because of the presence of avidin. But avidin is heat labile. In other words, it's destroyed by heat. So cooking eggs resolves the potential problem of biotin absorption, because once you cook the egg, the avidin molecule is denatured, is disassembled. In other words, instead of maintaining its normal or folded conformation that it has biological activity, it's completely unfolded. So it loses biological activity, so it doesn't bind biotin anymore. So for that reason, you don't develop the condition. So obviously, if you eat 1 or 2 eggs, or eventually you eat raw eggs, it won't cause you a problem. You have to eat consistently, regularly raw eggs, and mixed with other things, or the presence, or maintains the presence of avidin in your gut for a long time. It might impair the absorption of other nutrients, specifically biotin. So, but when you cook the egg, if you boil the egg, you completely denature avidin, and for that reason, it doesn't bind biotin anymore, so it solves the problem. So the isolation of biotin was crucial because it demonstrated that this vitamin could cure and prevent the condition that characterized egg white injury. In other words, they discovered that it was found that once you had biotin in an isolated form and you gave to someone who had the egg white injury condition, the problem disappeared. So it was obvious that it was caused by deficiency of a biotin, and associated with the fact that there was an impairment in absorption of biotin because of the binding with avidin that occurred with the ingestion of large amounts and in a consistently basis of raw eggs. So primary functions of biotin, important for lipid metabolism. So it commits acetate units to fatty acid synthesis, so it's important to produce fatty acids. Glucose, it replenishes oxaloacetate for the Krebs cycle, so it produces some intermediary molecules. It's important for the production of intermediary molecules. Oxaloacetate is a crucial one for the function of the Krebs cycle. So, and obviously for energy production. Amino acids, because it provides mechanism for metabolism of some amino acids. And also you have some odd-numbered chain fatty acids and allows catabolism of leucine. So there is importance in metabolism of lipids, metabolism of glucose, metabolism of proteins. So again, it's an important vitamin that can severely or can cause significant damage or can lead to significant complications if you don't have enough. Again, not common. I don't think that people are eating as many raw eggs and as frequently as people used to eat in the past. So it's not common today. And it probably could be also found in those people who are severely malnourished, that they have severe deprivation of food, and for that reason they don't get vitamin B. It's not even related to eggs at all. It's because they don't have access to food. But again, not common in North America, but possible. So what's the recommended dietary allowance? For men and women is the same. It's 30 micrograms per day. And the dietary sources are liver, chicken, pork, even eggs have it. The important thing is that if you're going to eat the egg, preferably boiled or fried or something that allows the denaturing of avidin to occur. But eggs are actually a good source of biotin too. So cornmeal, oats, wheat bran, cauliflower, lentils, soybean, peanuts, and walnuts. So you can see that if you have portions of them, if you have a couple eggs, you've got pretty much everything that you need of biotin, if provided that they are boiled or fried. If you eat, for instance, oats, it's almost 100 grams gives you approximately 24, 25 micrograms, which is very close to your requirement. Wheat bran, 100 grams gives you 36 micrograms. It's more than what you need. Cauliflower, 100 grams of it's 17. Lentils, 13. Beans, soybean, 60 micrograms in 100 grams. So it's double the amount that you require in a day. So peanuts, 100 grams of peanuts gives you 34 again. Walnuts, 37. So it's not difficult to obtain biotin. So it's again not common to see deficiency. So it's rare, normally found in selected populations, and these populations include, if you have it, includes lethargy and paresthesia in extremities. So it feels like the report, what people usually report is that feels like pins and needles or numbness in extremities. Hypotonia, so reduced muscle tone, depression and hallucinations. Skin symptoms involve red, scaly dermatitis. It's like if your skin is kind of scaly-like, so it's also there is desquamation of your skin. And it's typical around the eyes, nose, and mouth. So these are three areas where usually the condition manifests itself. It can also lead to anorexia, so lack of appetite, so people don't eat. It can also lead to nausea, alopecia, which is hair loss, and muscle pain can also be found there, may also occur. So these are, again, rare, but may, in some conditions where you have very limited supply of food, it may be observed, but it's really rare. Symptoms of toxicity, none reported, so we don't worry about taking too much biotin because it's not something that has been reported as toxic. It's not an issue, it's not a concern. Maybe if you take a supplement in extensive amounts, but even that, we don't have any reported symptoms of toxicity. So with that, we're going to stop here today. And in our last lecture about vitamins, we'll cover folate and vitamin B12. But for today, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.